This whole program is about showing up. If I don't want to necessarily be as engaged, I don't have to be, but it draws you into wanting to be because you listen to these questions by other brothers, and it generates more critical thinking on your own part of things that pretty much tie in together with your own problems.
What's going on, everybody? It is your pal Chris here, and we are here with somebody who is graduating from the implementation program. His name is Paul. We're very excited to have him with us. What's going on, sir?
Hey, how are you? I'm good.
I'm doing great, man. Thank you for making the time and taking the time. Just want to ask you some questions today about your experience in the group. First things first, how did you find the group to begin with?
Yeah, so JK had some nice YouTube videos several years ago. I think it was probably 8 years ago. I was doing network marketing. I was all over the place. I was doing commutes, and I would listen to JK, and it was one of those videos where it's like, hey, are you by yourself doing things that you don't want to do? Pretty much that kind of question. And I was just thinking, man, there's one guy that actually is being very mature about this and really gets what I've been trying to, not obviously not telling people, but something that has been totally on my mind. And I followed him for a while. I knew that there was a course that he had or a program that he had, but I was afraid of having enough money to join. So I always just waited to do these, and I would always get his emails all the time, but I never didn't stop reading his information. I always would read little snippets of emails that I'd get. So years went by, and it really took someone to reach out to me one New Year's to be like, hey, when are you going to go past the free group that you're in? When are you going to go, which is actually Jasper.
Jasper.
Yep, Jasper. Yep. And I am blessed that he reached out to me because all I needed was that little push. And I was 99% there, and I just needed that 1%. And I'm glad I did join because now I'm talking to you. I've talked to some amazing individuals within the group, and I've been able to process things that I've never processed before in my life.
Yeah, I've seen you grow, honestly, so much from when you first started a little over a year ago to where you're at. I'm curious as to what was the moment like where, you're listening to JK on like the YouTube channel, maybe the podcast as well, reading his emails and things. What was the moment like when you finally followed through with that get to the 100% from the 99 push? Okay, let's put skin in the game. Let's do this.
Yeah, so there was a point when I had a little bit of money where I could have joined, and I said no at that juncture. I got out of it mentally, and it took one random individual to pretty much figure me out right away. It was a client of mine. And I want to say again, I do massage therapy as my career, and which I will be changing eventually, making the transitions. But so far, it's pay the bills. And this individual ended up asking some questions. He was a chancellor for some medical institute, or he was good with psychology. So he was like, and he helped with addictions in the hospital. So are you addicted to, oh, you're addicted to porn. And I was like, oh, how'd you know? And then he told me to go and read later on. I got his number, and he gave me some details of books to read. And so then I started with Wild at Heart by John Elridge, which was a way to connect through God on the subject. But then eventually it still wasn't enough. So I still was leaning on information coming in from the porn reboot system. I still was like, that program is one that I'm putting on a pedestal. And I kept on joining like all these network marketing programs, everything else right before that. And it really took a little bit of like financial like levity where I was feeling pretty decent. And yeah, again, Casper reached out and we got started. And I was like, I can't do this anymore. I literally it's running me dry, and it's literally on the tip of my brain of everything. It's if I don't do this now, all that chance of me getting back is just, the water's going to be too far on one side to pour back onto the other side. Say if like my brain was a balance or my life was a balance, one was teetering towards spilling all on my lap and the other one was spilling over into a flower pot on growing something nice, right? So it had to go one way. And you know what? I found that it is actually going the way of less destruction and more growth. Doesn't mean life has been easy just because I got into the program. If anything, I've been more honest with myself, and I've been able to see how hard it really is in life to do more. But still, there's been hope to actually take more action, which I have, and document it and scheduling things out to make this happen.
That's awesome, man. And that's wild. I didn't know that part of your story where you were working on a client and they just were able to pick up, given their expertise or whatever, and they said, you're addicted to porn. And you're like, what?
Yeah. See, prior to the program, I probably wouldn't have been able to I'm pretty open as a person for the most part as of late. But as I got into the program, which was what, like a year ago, like not this January, but the January before. So it's been a year and a few months.
Yeah.
I gave myself a little bit of time before just saying I need to leave the system, which I'm not leaving entirely. I still will be in Optum U, working on my physique. I need to get that to at least a Hugh Jackman level, and then I'll be able to pull away. I don't believe in being in the program so far as long as I can walk away knowing what needs to be changed and continuing using the implementations and tools. That's the most important part.
Yeah. So on that note, what were some of the implementation tools that you were exposed to?
Again, I'm sure everyone's heard before, but the feelings exercise really is the core staple. If you don't do all the other ones, that one, for me, it was like every time I did the feelings exercise, it would also lead me into the rational behavior exercise, because my mind would start going through the feelings and then I would start thinking rationally as soon as I started having these feelings. It's just the way my brain works specifically. But doing all those, I actually started with doing that and then their rational belief and then the goals. Actually, the goals even came after the wins. So then it took me a while to get back to the core of, no, this is what JK actually asked you to do in the beginning modules of the program was do the feelings exercises, do 2 to 3, and then do the goals. The goals are really important. But the thing is, I wasn't ready for it. I didn't want to actually tackle goals because that would mean actually having to feel more of what I didn't have and focusing on that.
No, I hear what you're saying as far as at first, the structure of the feelings exercise. I find that guys that end up in the program that we're in, this porn addiction cycle, it's very much a thinking man's problem in that you find a structure like the feelings exercise. For guys like us, it's okay, I understand the pattern here. Today I feel blah. I first remember feeling blah when blah blah. Okay, seems simple enough. We'll have the structure, but to quote Dr. Jessica Eastman, there's the name, validate, and then feel. So if there's name, okay, today I feel tired. Validate, all right, it makes sense that I feel tired. I first remember feeling tired was then here. But for guys like us, we can often Mario jump over that last step, which is literally to feel it, to just be with whatever you're feeling. Exactly. So it's a huge, not just start to your day, but for guys like us, our muscle memory includes a lot of that suppression, a lot of that evading of certain feelings or thought patterns right there with you. So I'm really glad that a seemingly simple tool like that, like you said, it's like the cornerstone or like Reboot 101 that really gets momentum going. Speaking of Dr. Eastman, what's your experience been like with the coaching calls?
Every time I go on to it, and maybe I'm more engaged that call, maybe I'm not, there's always something that I pull away from it, and it's showing up. Right? This whole program is about showing up for the most part. There's little facets you can, even just saying, okay, I'm going to just come onto this call because if I don't want to necessarily be as engaged, I don't have to be, but it draws you into wanting to be, because you listen to these questions by other brothers, and it generates more critical thinking on your own part of things that pretty much tie in together with your own problems. It may not do it specifically, sometimes it's metaphorically or is in the same ball field. Most of this all is in the same ball field, but you can actually start pegging actual areas and make bullet points of it. And yeah, I think the Rankin videos was probably my favorite, just because I got to talk to a very well-rounded older gentleman. He also sounded like Neil Patrick Harris for a little bit, so that was nice. It was like I got to meet the more psychology version, and I don't need to watch Star Trek again. I'm good. No, I'm just kidding. I hope he doesn't hear that. But no, we all broke down into, but I've seen so many people have these emotional releases, and you can find men's groups all over the place. But if you don't make yourself show up to these things, you're not going to have an emotional release that's needed to move on to the next step of your life. You're just going to keep pushing. You're going to keep pushing, and no one's going to be able to help you. And I have probably isolated more than anyone that I know. Maybe not the guys in the program. There's a lot of that going around, but I know just from, sometimes I like the hermit life, and then as soon as I do that too often, I find myself needing to go out, and it's like a baby being born into the world. I put that off too long, and so keeping the groups intact keeps me around that social structure of stuff that you can't see when you go to work. It has actually helped me be ready for work, because it gets me more in tune with my feelings. I'm not all over the place around people. I can actually be a pillar of strength emotionally when I'm not jumping from topic to topic with people that, with my line of work, it's one-on-one. Sometimes talk to people, sometimes you don't, but it's about staying centered with in the medical field.
But just on the note of the thing that keeps sticking with me from what you said was showing up. And that's the thing that's sticking with me. The coaching calls are, like you said, you're going to hear testimonies and questions and stories from other guys that let us know, oh, wait, I'm not alone in this. I'm not the only one thinking that I'm thinking. Oh, that's a fresh perspective I haven't considered before. So it has all those benefits for sure. But yeah, like the simple act of showing up when you say you're going to show up, there's so much value in just committing to someone who is committing their time to be there with you. And there's a lot of life lessons to take away from that.
Yeah. So and not just commitment to what you're saying you're going to do, but and I think it usually starts at this level. Is I even at one point will see someone like you send me a message to work on something, like, hey, can I call you? I almost put you off to like tomorrow or something. I had the whole day off today. I was like, oh, I don't know. I'm overthinking. I knew I was overthinking. I was like, oh, he's going to talk to me. I'm not going to have anything to say. Obviously, that's that subpersonality just trying to keep me from enjoying life, because there might be dangers. And it's usually not rational. Yeah. Again, back to why you do these exercises is so you're more aware of that little bitch inside that just wants to keep you from living life.
Yeah, no, but it's so true. The accountability aspect is just so visceral and so mandatory in this program.
In the program, you have to do some stuff. Like, you have to be, at least show your face.
Yeah.
And do the morning routine. Like you said at one point, and not to take it too literally, but you would much rather see someone do a couple things consistently versus doing everything all at once and then binging on things you shouldn't be binging on. And then we see that person back in 2 weeks, just, oh, I slipped in this or whatever. I think the brothers that probably have the most success are the ones that at least keep things consistently happening.
Yes.
With accountability. Like, it's not going to be perfect. You're never going to do everything perfectly. Even the stars in this have had their moments where, whatever that slip is, it doesn't have to be with devices or whatever. It could be just a mental, could be eating pizza, some bull BS like that, a burger. It was a conversation you and I had at one point, but
Yeah, no, 100%.
yeah. So in any case, yeah, I'll leave the floor to you. I think
No, that's all good stuff. So I know another thing that I wanted to ask you was simply this. Taking yourself back in time about a year and change ago, the person who was listening to the YouTube episodes and the podcast and just having someone know that you had an issue with porn by just looking at you versus where
Yeah.
you're at now, how would you compare? Or in other words, like what types of changes have you seen in yourself?
Yeah, I think everyone would basically look at me and be like, "That guy's a nerd," but so that hasn't changed. But they definitely, they don't see a lot of the shame of being around people. I'm definitely confident being around people, and I would say that before I rabbit trail somewhere else. Um, Yeah, I used to be someone that has had stuff going on, but I think people have been able to enjoy me a little bit more than when I started a year or so ago. I'm
Is it
still
because
an,
of that confidence or is it something else?
it's just because I'm always an analytical person, and like overthinking, that's probably just going to be something that I work with throughout my
Mhm.
lifetime. It's not going to be something I'm just done doing.
So you're much
And
less in your head.
I can be yeah, I'm always going to be slightly annoying to people, but I can own stuff that I am more than I used to. I
That's
can
great.
make it work for myself, and I'm not going to cave underneath where I'm around women, for instance, who are very attractive, and think, "Oh, I'm thinking about this or I'm thinking about that." No, you can get through these things, and you can just treat them like normal people, and wow, you have so much more respect from them because you're not thinking like, "Oh, I can't think like this, so now I'm gonna go home and I'm gonna act out because I couldn't do anything." Like, those were thoughts, actually still thoughts, that I'll go through and I'll have to dialogue. It is one of those things that, especially with my job, I work with so many attractive people, which
But
is
I want to point out one thing that you said.
yeah,
Here's this thing that I'm thinking about. That's something I'll have to continue to dialogue about. Now, here's the thing. I love that because even if, for all intents and purposes, there's still room to grow, you at least know how to get there. You at least have the tools at your disposal now that you previously didn't even know existed. You have the tools at your disposal now where you can not only gain that sense of self-awareness and self-control, but to be able to take that information, take that data, and be able to apply it not just with your compulsive behaviors, but to your everyday life. So
yeah.
really latch onto that. That's a sentence that I know for myself I wouldn't have been able to say when I first started the program. So pat yourself on the back for that. That's amazing.
Yeah, no, it's
We start to like wrap up here. I did want to ask you the typical kind of testimonial question, but I think it's a good one. If you were to, let's say, meet somebody who says that they were really going through it as far as porn addiction goes, compulsive sexuality goes, and not finding many places to talk about it authentically and openly, struggling in silence the way that you and I know about very well, is there any words of advice that you would want to give to that person, having learned what you've learned and experienced what you've experienced in the Porn Reboot program?
You don't have to do this alone. I can point you towards good resources to start, and usually I have already come across younger individuals where I'm just thinking, you haven't noticed it yet, and I'm not going to start talking to this individual about things, but when they start asking me about my life, and they start asking, "Oh, you said you were in a program," something like that, honestly, and it's not recommended to every individual, but I have told the truth for the most part. Maybe not fully enveloping it, but wording it in a way that sounds a bit more appropriate, and let them know that as long as you can admit and you're not hiding behind the deed and you're actually getting in front of it and having control over your life, that's something we all want. I would pretty much just say per person, I would probably listen to them empathetically and speak in turn. But yeah.
Yeah, I love that. Thanks, man. So, as far as to that same person who might be struggling in a way that you and I know about, like I said, very well, would you recommend this program to them?
Yes, I would.
What about the program do you think that somebody who's just starting out, maybe have tried things on their own for a while, what would they take away from the
Easier or
program?
harder? It really depends. But for the most part, no matter their age, they're going to get tools, and they are going to be able to at least make a connection if they really have an out of control behavior and they just really have the hardest time keeping a lid on it. I know there's been some younger guys that joined the program. They're at least going to have tools that'll bring them back into that thought process. No, I learned this. I can connect one dot to another dot to make my life better. It's not always as easy as it was for me, because I pretty much came up to that point or decision as an older man where I'm like, all right, you're 33, going on 34. You're going to keep doing this because like you're going to get older. It's going to be harder to make these connections with women or whatever. Do you really want to feel like a bitch the rest of your life? Like, you may not ask yourself those questions when you're younger, but you definitely will when you're older. You will. Mark my words. I'm already feeling old just saying it like that. You will feel like this someday. And oh man, just to anybody, and even the older guys. I know older guys have had tremendous support and changes in their lives just from joining the program. And I am so blessed to have seen some of these older gentlemen come into the program and just seeing how they're really making changes, and they're seeing it in their marriages with their wives.
Yeah.
And in my own life too. I've been in a rocky relationship, but I have seen certain things get better where some things don't. Some things have, definitely. And intimacy will get better no matter what with anybody. Now, your relationship with that person may not always be the best. And it also starts with yourself too. And and no one answer can answer everything. It's a project. Everything's a project.
Yeah, this is a process being in the Reboot program, but as Paul said, if anybody sees or listens to this, it is possible to reboot. There is community, there are tools, and like Paul said, there is the reminder that you are not doing this alone. And I think that's so vital for people to hear, because there are a lot of people that are working through this behavior that do feel alone. So we got your back. We've got your best interest at heart. And yeah, Paul, thank you so much for your time, your minds, and I appreciate you, man.
Sir.
All the best to you.
Yes, you as well. I had a great time with you in the group.
Likewise, brother.